So this is week 3 of Patrick Lecture 242 on the spiritual meaning of political systems. And I am growing even more aware week by week of the power of the title of this lecture and how it impacts people. It has brought up 3 concepts that I want to share that have to do with this week's section, which is evolving from external to internal leadership. Leadership is also a word that is triggering people a lot. So let me talk first about the triggering that comes from the word itself. And I'd like to refer to Patrick Lecture 233, which is Power of the Word. I love the lecture because it's one of those lectures that can stand independently of the pathwork cosmology. It doesn't require an acceptance of a lot of the pathwork concepts. It stands on its own. And basically what it says is the word carries a lot of energy. It's as if in music with musical instruments, what makes a musical instrument so powerful is the harmonics of it. Almost all musical instruments have these invisible, I don't know enough musicology to speak in technical terms, please forgive me, but many instruments are basically sounding 10 or 15 notes at once. I don't know how it's possible, but the vibrations are such, and the way the instrument is shaped and formed, etc., creates a rich sound that is more than the single note being played. Words are like that. Words carry. They carry an archetype, they carry experience, and they carry the forcing current, the agenda that you are putting into the word. So I'm going to explain those 3 subtypes of this first topic. Archetypes. I like to select popular examples of these concepts rather than being academic or very intensely spiritual about it. Archetype, the best example I can think of are weddings. People get married, and the minute they plan the wedding, marriage, wedding, the word wife, the word husband, the word spouse, the words in-laws, all these words carry generations upon generations of information. We don't have to intend it ourselves, but it's carried by other people. It's brought in. It's almost as if we call this in from the ether, all the energy that's been wrapped up around these words, so that it is not uncommon for people to behave one way before a wedding and another way after a wedding, and basically say, what happened to me? What happened to us? It's a matter of not being aware of all these, and I'm going to use the instrumental term harmonics that come with formalizing a relationship and engaging in a social archetype. So the power of the word comes in part from the archetype that society has built in our history, our literature, films, music, plays, oral traditions, as well as our cultures. Then you've got personal experiences, which are subjective and unique to you, and your experience can be radically different from someone else's experience, and yet you use the same word. And we think we're communicating, but we're not. We're getting through the day, but we're not aligned. We're not in sync with each other. For instance, I use the word leadership, and it is a positive experience for me. For a lot of people, this is not a positive experience. They don't like the leadership they've seen. They've dabbled. They don't care for it. They don't feel drawn to it. And so it's as if I'm speaking another language when I speak in the terms of my understanding about leadership. So there's archetypes, there's experience, and then there's the agendas and the desires that we cram into that word, where we want to twist and turn the word to mean a certain thing. And all these three braid together, archetype, experience, and agenda. They braid together in a way where it's almost impossible to figure out why the communication is not happening or what has gone on that has led to a result or a disagreement or a situation that we didn't think that we had built. So this is all referencing power of the word, which affects the words politics, which affects the word government, leadership. It also affects the word work. I cannot tell you how many times I have used the word work and I can almost hear a collective groan. And yet, work is a neutral word. It just describes getting something done so that when children play, they are on some level working. They're working on their hand-eye coordination, on their social skills, on their motor reflex. They're working very, very hard. They're just having a lot of fun and they're not producing anything. So we don't call it work. We call it play. Well, anything you work at that you really enjoy is a form of play. Specifically, there are certain professions where people will say, and I get paid for doing this. And I've had those jobs. And it's a delight and a pleasure. It's if I was rich enough, I'd pay somebody to let me do that job because it's not drudgery. It is a thrill for me to participate in that process. But because I've had a fairly been up and down, but I've had a fairly positive work experience in life earning money. I have a positive view of that. Someone else does not. When we get into talking about political systems and government, you come from completely different experiential backgrounds with a completely different aspect about these things. And it's very difficult to get on the same page. The second point I want to make is about dualistic thinking. When we talk about concepts, we usually like some and don't like others, or we have a specific goal in mind for how that concept would manifest. So if the guide, for instance, names in this lecture a monarchy feudal, a socialist communist, and capitalistic democracy, there are many forms. It's just an easy division of three different types. And the guide says, and this, as man evolves, he evolves away from feudal systems and he evolves more towards independent, people taking independent responsibility for their actions, which is more in the line of capitalistic democracy. Once again, being fluid with these definitions, not rigid about them. However, once you say that one is better than the other, even if you only talk about the good points, you have invisibly created some category somewhere of the bad points. And I find it difficult. The guide works very, very hard at trying to present things in a neutral fashion. And inevitably in discussion, you wind up with people saying, this is better than that, and that's terrible. And they've chosen sides. The moment you choose a side and you advocate that at the expense of another side, you have created dualistic thinking. It may not feel like that because you haven't verbalized the other side, but creating good creates bad, creating right creates wrong, creating wrong creates right. And fears love the fuzzy parts. They love undefined aspects. So if you don't define something, but it's in your peripheral thought process, fear can lurk there. So this is where duality comes into the very language that we use. And the third is something that I read recently that enchanted me. And that is a phrase from an advice columnist called cafeteria envy. Now, it enchanted me because I've never quite been able to verbalize why it's a problem when people say, I envy this person for their green dress. I envy this person for their dog. I envy this person for their extra bedroom in their house. even a slightly positive version of envy, which is more like tainted admiration, except, boy, I wish I had it. What this advice columnist was Carolyn Hacks of the Washington Post, the way she phrased it is this: we're in fantasy about this. We pretend we can have the best of something without the counteracting problems that come with it. We act as if we can pluck that one thing out of their life and insert it into ours and only get the benefits. So that the fantasy part is we're refusing to understand the interconnectedness of all this. And the way she phrased it is by envying the other person's life, for instance, you want to go there, but invisibly you want to go there with all your positive experiences, with all your positive qualities, with the memories you want to keep. Except that that would not create the very thing you're trying to duplicate, because it's very complicated, but how they have been able to create something involves their memories, their experiences at the exclusion of yours. So I liked the phrase cafeteria envy. And I think it's very applicable to where the other phrase that I've used over the years is cherry pick. But I like this one better. Because cherry pick, you would think you can choose the best fruit and leave the others behind. Cafeteria envy describes where we are actually in complete fantasy about only getting what we want and leaving the rest of a complex interconnectedness behind. So those are the three things that I wanted to share. I hope you read the lecture. It's quite powerful. Patrick Lecture 242, spiritual meaning of political systems. And thanks for listening.